It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
I'm here.
Now that he's got one up on me.
We're here physically, but beyond that, that's about it.
Beyond that, no promises.
Right. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
I'm going to have to resort to the big bag of nothing this week.
Okay.
Unfortunately, life has clamped its jaws firmly on my ass this week, and so I have done nothing fun in the last 7 days. Let's just say I was meeting with the roofer today. And yeah. So there we go.
Yay.
Not really.
Oh, I'm sorry you're not having fun.
Yeah, I'll turn it around at some point. We'll have fun this evening.
Woohoo!
By gum.
One way or another.
Alrighty. Les?
Well, before broadcast we were talking and Thomas brought up what he and I attended this week, and that is a showing of a film at the Alamo Drafthouse. It's their program called Video Vortex, where they show movies that went straight to video. They had no openings at a theater, and that's what they pride themselves with this program. The film we saw was Crocodile Fury, and that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
And you're speechless. Wow.
Okay, well, I'll expand on it a little bit. This is how bad it was. And correct me if I'm wrong, Les. This was an Indonesian film that was dubbed in English, although the copy they were showing Tuesday night had Greek subtitles. But there was actually, what was the story again, Les? When it went Europe, they actually added footage. And what country was that? Was that Turkey?
Well, what they did was primary filming was in Thailand, I believe.
Yeah.
Secondary filming was in Japan because they went to get actors that the Japanese would go to the movie for.
Okay.
The movie was in English. It was so badly synced, though, that it looked like they were speaking a different language. The sound in the picture was so slightly off, but if you watch the lips, which I did several scenes, then yes, it was done in English originally, but they did have the Greek crawl down at the bottom. And Mike, this was so bad. People asked me what I thought about the Greek there on the screen, and I said I'm glad they had it so I could understand what they were saying. And I had no idea how to speak or read Greek.
Oh my goodness.
And here's the other thing. The footage that was shot in Japan was an entirely different story arc that had nothing really to do with the main story arc. There was references. They made reference to each other, but it was so jarring of a jump of edits that it looked like it was basically two films pieced together.
Wow.
I had never had so many what the Frau moments in my life. trying to figure out. Let's just say, Thomas, they didn't let the plot get in the way of this movie.
Oh, hell no. The basic idea was this village that was being attacked by people who could change into crocodiles.
Wear Crocs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then the secondary story is about this agent of what was never explained. He was just an agent who was supposed to go after this witch who controls zombies and hopping vampires. These are vampires that are literally hopping like a rabbit. Or like how humans do to imitate rabbits.
Wow.
Yes, and this was an hour and 40-minute film?
Yes.
And it felt like 5 hours.
And how much did they pay you to go see this?
Well, luckily with this program, it's very low cost.
Yep.
Good.
And there's a reason, because
except for the 2 hours
they're
of your
trying to
life you'll
get
never get
people in
back. Because they're trying to do what now?
They were trying to get people in there. But normally, it's a big draw for Video Vortex, yet that night we did not have as large a crowd as I had expected. I was thinking there would be 2/3 to full, and I bet there wasn't even a third.
And didn't they make the comment that this was their second screening at a bigger theater, at a bigger room?
Yes, it is.
So,
because I heard the first time they were packed.
Yeah.
So
apparently word got out.
Well, in this series, they do post what movies they're going to show, unlike their AGFA films. With Video Vortex, they let you know what they're going to show, and I think on their website they even have a write-up that you can follow and decide if you're going to spend your $1 to go see this movie.
Ay.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Alrighty then. At least y'all had fun. Right?
Did we have fun left?
Yeah. It was just trying to find your way through it, or actually fight your way through it.
Yeah, it was more like fight. Yeah, not fine.
It was something that makes me explain why I don't like to go to see martial art movies.
Yeah, once again, all the fighting sequence, which very little there was very close up. So you really couldn't see that much. Which is always an interesting choice.
Yeah, it's an easy way out.
Yeah, I know.
Keeps them from having to be like talented or something.
And it's real interesting to see the same actors get killed at least twice in a movie.
Oh, yeah.
See, and you use that word actor as if that's what they really are. More than likely, they're just stunt guys.
No, more than likely they're just people that say, hey, you want to be in a film?
Well, there's that, yeah. Which is pretty much how they get their stunt guys when they're making a movie like that. But anyway.
I know in one instance, very early in the film, we're seeing a child, and I think it was a mother, up in a tree trying to avoid being snatched by one of the crocodiles. And about 40 minutes later, we see the same mother and child in the same clothes climbing up the same tree. And it's like 2 or 3 days later, supposedly. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we used the footage over again. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
When you're
That's kind of what happened.
Uh-huh.
This movie made rubber suits really take a hit You thought that a man in a Godzilla rubber suit was bad? This was worse.
These guys are giving rubber suits a bad name.
Well, and like you said, at least they actually use some footage of crocodiles in there sometimes.
Ooh, fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, they were using alligator footage.
Oh, okay, alligator.
And that's what was funny about it.
Did they just swipe it straight from Live and Let Die, or what?
I wouldn't doubt that Live and Let Die leaned toward it.
And of course, the highlight is watching the little pre-movie shows that Alamo's so well known for. Wes always goes, "We got to get there, so we gotta get there 30 minutes early, so we can watch that pre-show." And it was worth it. We actually saw the trailer for Alligator People with Beverly Garland and Lon Chaney Jr.
Cool.
What was it Lon Chaney Jr. said?
I don't know. At that point,
alligator man or something.
What the hell am I doing in an alligator movie? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
At that point in his career, he was there for the paycheck. Unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was part of what I was doing this week. I actually showed Les something yesterday, and as kind of pulling back the curtain, those who are regulars for this show know that we record on Tuesday, but this week we recorded on Thursday because of the movie we just mentioned. Anyway, but also in previous episodes, I've talked about me watching stuff on Twitch. Well, by the time this comes out, the full release of the eagerly awaited Friday the 13th game will be out. But right now they're doing beta. They started up beta again just a couple days before it's released. The actual release will be Friday the 26th. So I've been watching that because I've been waiting forward to seeing this game again. Because when it came out, when they were doing beta in December, I was just floored. It looked like fun. I showed it to Les, and I'm not sure Les was impressed with it. But
not really. Thank you anyway.
Mm-hmm. But let you guys know, because I know I was telling some of the guys that were in the store that was watching it as well. They were asking, "Can you kill Jason?" I said, "Well, from what I've heard from the developers, there is a way to kill Jason, but no one knows how to do it." Well, gentlemen, I saw it happen today. Ooh. Jason can be killed, but it is very hard, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of teamwork to get it done. And the thing is if you're familiar, if you're a fan of the series, it makes sense. I'll just say that much. Because if you really want to know, there's already about 5 or 6 videos on YouTube on how to do it. It's like one person did it. It was funny because I watched a couple of the videos, and each one of them go, "We're the first ones to do it." And like, well, no, someone had to be the first ones to do it. But who was it? But I actually saw it happen live this afternoon during a stream, and it was interesting. It was cool. It's very difficult to do, but you can do it.
Neat.
So I recommend everybody just kind of check it out and just see the game. It's fun. I can see what the appeal is, and not just the kills, but just kind of the scares and all of that. So go check it out.
I would say just offer him a part as a village person in Crocodile Fury 2.
That'll kill him.
Electric Boogaloo?
Skater Dater?
Nerds in Paradise?
Wow.
Anyway, before we get into this week's episode, we want to take a couple minutes to thank our sponsors for their support. Although after this, they may decide to renege their support.
Hey, it's not like you're praising this big pile of steaming crap. You're just reporting.
Well, I'm supporting the game. The movie, I'm not. No.
Yeah, I was talking about the movie. I wasn't talking about the game.
Right. First off, I want to say thank you for Make Mine Indie, Peter Smitty, and Alternative Comics digital catalog of print, digital, and web comics that's available. 114 pages, I believe. We're on the spring catalog. The summer one should be coming out here real soon. I need to get a release date on that. I don't have it in front of me right now.
If they're consistent, it'll be right around the first day of summer.
Okay, so we're talking about June 21st. Yeah, around there. That sounds about right. It's loaded with previews, reviews, interviews for publishers you may not be familiar with. I would highly advise to check it out, and because there's some really quality stuff there. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors tab, and the first thing you'll see is the logo for Make My Indie and a link where you can download either a PDF or a CDZ file. Those are indeed free, so do that and check it out, and you might find something you didn't realize you really want. Also, want to say thank you to Things from Another World for sponsoring the Fellowship. A lot of good deals going on right now that are about to end here at the end of the month on the 31st. 70 to 80% off certain graphic novels and titles. In addition to their evergreen savings as 40% off comics, statues, toys, and general merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And 50% off Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels. So while you're on our sponsors page, just scroll down. You'll see information for Things from Another World. Click on one of those images. That'll take you to their website and lets them know that we sent you their way and take advantage of some of these great deals. And once again, thank you guys for your support. Alrighty. For this week, being the week of Memorial Day, we figured we would be in the spirit of, seems kind of funny to me to call it a holiday, but just a special day of being Memorial Day, and take advantage of a certain anniversary of a show that was originally a novel that was later adapted to a movie, and the movie was successful enough that it was adapted into a TV show. And the show is actually celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, and I am talking about MASH, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. And it seems kind of funny to me because I remember when this show was on originally, and obviously I was too young to get into it. And as I got older, I would watch some of the episodes, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, yeah. But more recently, I have kind of really got into it and started digging it, and so I've been watching the shows a lot more, especially the past few months. But I kind of wanted to take some time to kind of acknowledge the anniversary and kind of talk about that. But I've been doing all the talking. I want to let one of you guys kind of jump in first and get your thoughts and feelings about this show. And so, who would like to go first?
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting change of pace for us to talk solely about a TV show, which doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of geek culture to it, but it's one that's it was so pervasive back in the day. It was a really popular show for a really long time. I mean, not very often do you find what's essentially a sitcom, that successfully runs for more than 10 seasons, more than 10 years, and B, is about something that can be as honestly flat out depressing as war. I mean, it's essentially a sitcom set in a war zone. I mean, who the hell would have thought? And I don't. I've always marveled at the fact that they turned this into a sitcom. I just think it's weird. I mean, it works. If you were to try it today, there is no way in hell it would work, but
Yeah.
it works. It was an actually really funny show, and it had its melodramatic moments, but
Yeah.
for the most part, it was really funny.
You say that, and I kind of want to kind of touch on that a little bit. As I've been watching, because there's several of the networks that do a binge of these episodes, so I'm able to see a bunch of them at one time in one sitting. And I do find that it seems like the earlier episodes were a lot more sitcom, but there is a point where they do curtail that. Now, there may be some episodes where it's just nothing but a lot of jokes, whether it's physical or
just their usual witty banter.
Or witty banter, that kind of stuff. But there were several of them that were just straight drama. You would say you go say more maybe a dramedy, if that's an accurate word. I'm not sure if that's a real word or whatever. But yeah, they kind of it was kind of a seesaw. You know, there may be one episode where it's a lot more drama than comedy, and then some that would be more comedic than it would be drama. But there was always and that, to me, that's kind of interesting seeing that, because you didn't know what you were going to get, really, or at least that was my thinking or my feeling.
Let's start with the movie. I remember seeing the movie. I was underage when I saw the movie. Because that was an R-rated movie when it first came out.
Oh yeah, it still is.
And one of my cousins who was in the service was visiting my parents, so he said, "Well, come on, let's go to the movies." Now, the transition to the television show was pretty good. They had, I'm going to say, 2 actors that were in the movie that also showed up in the television series. And it was successful. It was very amusing. It was very touching. But it wasn't sappy. At no time did they lay it on to make you cry for no apparent reason. They were real solid in their writing, and I think that was one of the strengths for the show. I know that the author of the book, the nom de plume Richard Hooker, wasn't wild about Alan Alda's version of Pierce, but obviously nothing was said at that time. That was not something that the production companies would trot out there. The humor was witty. The humor was quick. The one-liners came at a furious pace, and it wasn't just a single person that got the funny lines. It was everybody in the cast would get good lines. The actors, I thought, held it real well. And even the transition for new doctors or new nurses or new commanders was well done. I just think that the show was fun. And I know that each one of us has a particular scene or a line that is stuck with them. I know that the wife and I we have the same line, and we use it quite often to get each other's attention. So I think it was a great series. And what was it, 70? When did it start? When did the TV show start?
72.
72. Okay, yeah, 2 years after the movie. It's held up. It was an anti-war television show, but you really didn't get the feeling that they were protesting. They did it subtly, if at all. I'm happy that I got to see it. And believe me, it was a rush home on Tuesdays to make sure I got to see MASH.
Watching the show now, it's kind of funny seeing some of the faces that were just either they were guest stars or they were just actors that had been hired to play a particular role. I remember seeing one just the other day that kind of floored me. This is obviously later in the run, but in the same episode, you had George Wendt, who we all know from Norm of Cheers. He was early in the episode, and then later in the episode, one of the soldiers you see is Andrew Dice Clay.
Okay.
And I'm like, now that's strange.
It's diverse. That's what it is.
It's very diverse, yes.
Right. People from all across the country being trotted off to this war on the other side of the world. Yeah, it was. I have to agree with Les. There's very much a subtle anti-war sentiment going on, and a lot of it is because, I mean, this show started out as the Vietnam conflict was in full swing.
Exactly.
And yes, it ended before the show did. The show very, very, very much outlasted the Vietnam War. But yeah, there was a lot of subtle jabs there, for sure.
Well, the show lasted longer than the actual Korean conflict, if I'm not mistaken.
By a ways, yeah. The Korean thing was like a little less than 3 years. The show lasted 11.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and one episode I distinctly remember, which I always thought was weird because Klinger, the guy from Ohio, there's one episode in which he is, for some unexplained, it may have been explained in the episode. It's been years since I saw it. I don't remember. But all of a sudden he's this huge Brooklyn Dodgers fan. And I mean, this episode essentially runs the course of the entire baseball season.
I know which one you're talking. Yeah, I know which one.
The
Go ahead.
51 season.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends in this very kind of, I mean, honestly, kind of poignant moment where Klinger is standing out in the middle of this empty camp, listening to that playoff game at the end of the 51 season,
mm-hmm.
In which the play known as the shot heard round the world happened, in which the Brooklyn Dodgers lost the playoff to get to the World Series. Yeah. And I always thought it was weird because why would this kid from Ohio give a damn about the Brooklyn Dodgers? The Cleveland Indians had just been in the World Series like 3 years before this. Didn't make sense to me, but anyway, it was still a really good episode. And
he was a Mud Hens fan too, because he was always wearing the Toledo cap.
Right. I always had Toledo Mud Hens.
I just saw that episode just a couple of days ago. To be honest, that's why I remember this. Yeah, the whole episode was like a year. It spans an entire year.
Yeah, it was an entire baseball season of Klinger.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, it was literally a year because it was like New Year's Day 1951 till New Year's Day 1952. because for Christmas they got the film of the playoff game.
Oh yeah. And
So
then,
so they were watching that because Klinger was making bets with Colonel Potter, and then Winchester got involved, and it got to like $100 bet that the Dodgers would not
that the Dodgers would win the series.
that they would win the series. And we're talking 1951, so $100 back then is a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they lost. So Klinger was just so devastated, and of course Winchester is furious. And yeah, I just saw that like 2 or 3 days ago. So yeah, I know exactly the way you're talking about. That's why I remember it so well.
Yep.
But yeah, it didn't make any sense. It was like, yeah,
It's like,
okay, he's
why
a
the
Dodger.
Dodgers?
Yeah,
Why is he a
yeah.
Dodgers fan all of a sudden? It was, and I don't remember if there was something at the beginning that got said that he had forsaken something and decided that the Dodgers were it for whatever reason.
I I
Remember,
don't remember that. I honestly I don't think they ever addressed it.
I
I think it
I,
was just.
I kind of didn't
I
think they
think
did
it was
either.
just. I think it's just one of those where the writers just kind of had a brain fart.
Well, I think he was also kind of the baseball fan,
Yeah.
and so if it
Oh,
was going to
too.
be somebody, you stick that on the baseball fan. And so, I mean, and it's a show, and it made for a good show, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean it
It
was
worked
yeah, it
out.
was a nice 30 minute little jaunt. So yeah, hey, no biggie.
Yeah, I don't know. Going back to what Les was saying about the transition from movie to TV show, I always found it interesting. I wonder, hearing what you say about the writer not being real happy with Alan Alda, I always thought it was interesting how much they changed that character, the character of Pierce, between the movie and the TV show. And I've read the book, and I've actually got the movie on DVD. Um, and the movie, the characters in the movie are actually mostly pretty faithful to the book. So given how much they changed Pierce, I mean, essentially, I guess to match Alan Alda's sort of style of comedy, um, I could see where the writer would get annoyed because Pierce became a lot more outgoing and a lot more just, I
It
guess, more of a prankster, I guess. I mean, he was kind of a prankster in the book and in the movie, but he was a quiet one.
yeah. It's funny going back and looking at this, especially if you pay attention to the credits. It it's not so much early on, but when you get later in the seasons, you see how much Alda's involved. He's writing scripts, he's directing a lot of the episodes. He was given producer credits, I'm sure, or creative consultants. This was his show.
Oh yeah.
If you did not know that by watching the episodes, you
Read the
look at the
credits.
credits. Yeah, this was his from the get go, and I'm it's kind of amazing. I mean, it worked, but I didn't.
Worked for a long time too. I mean, there
I
were
need to go back. I need to go back and look and see that.
not
I
ev-
mean, what did he do up to that point that kind of earned him that?
oh, he had been around. This was
I know
not
you.
his first go round. That's for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, clearly he must have been just continually doing more and more throughout the early seasons. Yeah, it would be interesting to find out. I don't even know if there's any kind of documentary that talks about this. That would be awesome to watch
Right.
because I'm such a documentary nerd. But yeah, I mean, clearly he must have been just sort of quietly taking on more stuff as the series went along
Yeah.
because yeah, by the end. And the cool thing about it was, I mean, not even at the end, not every episode was a winner, but a lot of them were. A lot of them were good.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
still good enough to hold. And then of course there's at the time the single most watched episode of television in history,
Right.
the final episode. But yeah, that I remember watching. I remember sitting down with the family in 1983 and watching that and being allowed to like stay up past my bedtime to watch it.
Yeah, I remember doing that too. You talk about how Hawkeye changed from the movie to the TV show. It's been a while since I've watched the movie, but it seems to me Radar changed a little bit. To me, it seems like they really, on the show they kind of pushed him more of being the innocent, oh, I've never seen a naked woman, that kind of thing. Where in the movie he didn't seem to be that way. Am I remembering that wrong?
Not really. I mean, yeah. No. I mean, damn it. What was the question? Don't do that to me. I kind of agree because, and which is ironic, I thought, because I mean he's one of the few of the actors that made the transition.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, I don't think Radar had a huge role in the movie.
No.
I
But
mean, for the most
like
part, all he did was really kind of parrot Henry in the movie. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 scenes where he's just basically, essentially rattling off notes out of his head, rattling off an outline out of his head, and just basically running the camp. Because
well, yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is it seemed like in the movie he was one who he was already a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, he was clearly the administrator.
Right. And you obviously got that on the show, but
But I
don't
guess
know.
in a way they had to give him more of a personality in the show, and so that's the way
Right.
they went. There was actually another dude in the movie, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, who was kind of more the innocent type. I wish I could remember his name.
Bulmer?
Was it Bulmer? It may have been.
It may have been.
Bulmer was the one that would come up after Henry and Radar would talk, and he would say, "Okay, sir, what are your orders?" "Oh, I gave everything to Radar." Or are you talking about the Bud Cort character that was told that he killed a guy?
Yeah, I think it was him. I think it was the Bud Cort character. I can't remember his name, but yeah, because he was kind of the one hanging around the edges and being innocent, basically. I always, as much as I like the show and as successful as it was, I always liked the movie just a little bit more. I think there were things in there that just made more sense, which it's hard to maintain continuity over 11 seasons of a sitcom. I mean,
Right.
why even try? I mean, do like The Simpsons and don't bother with continuity. Just screw it. Just have fun. Because, like I said, you're stretching a 3-year war out to 11 seasons.
Yeah.
Screw continuity. It's not going to work. But yet there was just, I don't know. I think the sense of humor was different in the movie, and it could be because, like you said, it was an R-rated movie, and so it was just, and I didn't see it until I was a grown-up either. So don't anybody think I'm watching that at age 5 or something, which is probably where I started watching the TV show. But yeah, it was just a different sense of humor and a different attitude because you could, and because it was, I think, a little more realistic in some ways. And yeah, you talk about a favorite line. I'll be honest, my favorite line does come from the movie, and it was near the end, and it came from Duke, who was a character that didn't make it to the show, and his line, which I'm intentionally not giving any context for, was, "Okay, fair is fair, Colonel. If I nail Hot Lips and punch Hawkeye, can I go home too?"
That was a great scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, between that one or where Margaret was saying how I don't understand how someone could get such a high obtain such a high rank And there's Father McKay said he was drafted. He was talking about Hawkeye.
Yeah. He was drafted.
He was drafted. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how they didn't include Duke in the show. Because I thought Duke was an interesting character. I liked the three of them were pretty good. Duke, Trapper, and Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wonder why they went that route.
Well, and the subtitle on the novel was a novel about 3 army doctors.
True.
So it was clearly about the 3 of them.
Right.
Why they chose... Well, and I think the deal was they had, I don't know if they had to, but I think it made it smoother if they made Frank Burns kind of more of a part of the team, even though the guys are always picking on him and stuff. I mean, it was clearly a bullying situation, but we don't need to go that route. But the way they could get away with that more if Frank was a little closer in to the group.
Good point.
And to try to have a 4-person group doing that it's just a little more complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly doable. I mean, read the Golden Girls, but it's just more complicated. And you've got the ensemble cast around it anyway, so you're pulling other people in all the time. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to write a 22-minute or at that time 24-minute, 25-minute episode, you're just not going to be able to cram enough lines in to make it worth having that 4th player.
It's a fair point.
Not to overanalyze or anything, but, that would be my thought.
No, I think you're right, though. You can't spotlight everybody.
Yeah, the more spotlights you have, the less bright they are,
and the more blurred the vision you get.
Right. Yeah, the less well you can see everybody.
Yes. Well, my favorite line from the television show was Pierce seeing Klinger on the grounds, and Klinger was walking around in a fashionable woman's outfit, and Pierce looks at him and goes, "Oh, field general." And that's the line the wife and I use as we want to get our spouse's attention. "Oh, field general."
Oh, really? Okay.
Dang it, Les, why you set us up like that? Anyway.
Mike was talking about the books, and according to the list, there were 15 books written. 2 actually by Richard Hooker, but the last 13 are listed to be written with William F. Butterworth, but actually Butterworth wrote those. I'm like Mike, I've seen the first 2. I've read the first 2 books. I have not seen anything about the last books. And they were written between 75 and 77. That's a lot of books in 2 years.
That is a lot of books in 2 years.
But I too enjoyed the novel. I thought the first book was hysterically funny. Even at that time, with the war going on in the Middle East or in the Southeast Asia. And the movie and the TV show, even the book, lifted the spirits of America. I think that people were happy to watch this program. It was a highlight, and as Mike said, it was top rated for quite some time. So I've got a feeling that this is a television show that is going to go on, and has since its departure from the original screen, from the original television series. But the series is going to go on for long past my years on Earth. It's just one of those that has tested the time and been able to wade through it.
Well, I mean, why not? Because, I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, yeah, it's about a Korean conflict, but it is for the most part, is what it's already said, it's anti-war. So that's a feeling that will never go away. There's also pranksters, there's jokes, that kind of stuff. I mean, everybody loves playing prank and laughing at someone else's being the butt of a joke or something like that. So, I mean, and they were well written. For them, almost all the episodes were top-notch stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they'll stay around because there is somewhat of a relevance to them, and they're well-crafted episodes. So, yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's war and smartasses, it will be relevant.
Yep. As long as there's not a war on smartasses, then we're in trouble.
This show is definitely in trouble if that's the case. we will be one of the first casualties. But anyway.
It also spawned a series, a spin-off, after MASH.
Yeah, but no one really wants to talk about that.
Yeah. That's actually not the only spin-off.
No, it's not.
No.
There was actually a successful one.
Yes.
Trapper John?
Yes.
Yep. And it was funny. Go ahead.
Which gave there were two major twists on that one. One, it moved the character into what was at the time the modern day. And two, it was not a comedy.
It was an hour drama.
It was an hour drama. I mean, it had funny moments. I didn't watch a lot of it, but I watched enough to know it had some funny moments. But it wasn't a comedy.
Right.
It was a modern hospital drama in the early '80s.
It was funny. The other day, I was thinking about, for some strange reason, I was thinking about when MASH was on, and I was thinking it was Monday nights, but I could be wrong. But I was thinking that later on in the evening was Lou Grant. And I was thinking about the fact that was a spinoff of Mary Tyler Moore, and I thought that that's kind of unusual that a spinoff of a sitcom would be a hour-long drama, but Trapper John MD is another one. I mean, there's not many, but there's a couple right there. That's kind of strange. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just got us in the ditch, but But there was supposed to be another spinoff that never made it. It was going to be called Walter.
Yeah.
But I think there was like a pilot shot, and that was about it. I don't think it ever made it to air. That was basically going to just focus on Radar being back home. And this was going to be before After MASH, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time today. Did you have a favorite character?
I don't know.
Or did you just like them all?
It's one of those shows that I mean, like I said, you've got the ensemble thing going on, so there are a lot of really likable characters, and even the characters that are kind of what's the best term? I almost want to call them patsies. I mean, Frank Burns is more, by the time you get to the show, he's more of a patsy than a villain. But even he is likable in his own way. So I don't know. I would be hard pressed with that many characters. It would be really hard to pick a favorite.
I agree with you, Mike. There are so many different characters, yet they made each one human. They made the most fun of Burns, but you look at some of the others, Winchester, Potter, Honeycutt, all of them not only suffered pranks and gags, but they also turned them and made them pranks and gags. And that's life. This is more of a believable idea than a normal sitcom at that time. And I've said it before, one week you become best buddies and the next week you're back to being the bitterest foes. But in this one, and truthfully, after Frank Burns left the program was when they became a little more believable as characters. He was the butt of so many jokes that he was not fleshed out like the others were. Was it Winchester who had a sister with a handicap?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was deaf? She was deaf, or?
Well, no, I think she was blind because he would make recordings. He would make sound recordings.
That's right.
To send home.
You're right. Thank you. But because of that, Major Winchester became a fuller figure. The idea of Honeycutt talking about his wife, Peg, to me, that made him a fuller character. Of course, Pierce talking about his father. Radar talking about Ottumwa, Iowa. Things like that. Just, it looked like it came after the character of Burns departing the series.
And I think they started doing it before, but they kind of never got around to Burns. Maybe they couldn't figure out a way to do it. Maybe he was just such a weasel that they didn't feel like they could make him human. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I would say it always struck me as being just a little more slapstick than the rest, because he was just kind of he was almost just a punching bag to an extent. It was just, there just wasn't really a whole lot of depth there, which is unfortunate, really. He was almost deeper in the movie when he was played by Robert Duvall.
Yes, that's true. It was Duvall that made him a stronger character, although he was the punching bag for the whole outfit.
Mm-hmm. At least he got his swings in, something you wouldn't have seen in the TV show from Burns.
True.
He got hauled away in a Jeep wearing a straitjacket, so it's not a glorious victory, but it's at least a resolution.
Yeah. Well, do you think that was a reason why Larry Linville left the show, is they couldn't figure out what to do with him, with the character? They couldn't do anything to develop him more than being the annoying butt of jokes that overcompensates for a lot of things.
Right, a two-dimensional foil.
Basically, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on whether they let him go or he left, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I for the sake of the general opinion of Larry Linville as an actor, you'd hope if he quit, that's why he quit. But who knows?
Yeah. That goes back to there needs to be a documentary about this.
Yeah. Seriously. That's what I'm talking about.
That would be a lot of cross-checking on facts for that show.
Yes, it would. A lot of show there to talk about.
Now, I do have a question about Larry Linville. I was just checking to see what other TV series he was in, and he did several others, but usually it was a guest appearance. But under the listing, he died in April of 2000 at the age of 60. And his last acting credit was a movie called West from North Goes South. And it was done in 2004.
It was released in 2004.
That's just weird.
Kinda.
Yep.
Yeah, basically, for the most part, a career TV actor.
All right. Any final thoughts before we move on?
It's a great show.
It was a great show.
Great movie.
Would you like to have somebody do a comedy now that'll stand the time? Is there one?
Something like this? Like a comedy?
No, just a comedy. Just something that ran for several years and is still relevant.
I'm not as much a fan of TV comedy as I once was. I don't want to date myself too much by answering that question in a way, because I find I don't enjoy TV comedy anymore. There's not a show on TV right now that I can say I watch and I like. To me, they're all just an endless string of dick and fart jokes. Which, there's nothing wrong with dick and fart jokes, really, but it's just, I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me at that pace anymore. I mean, I'm not a huge TV watcher anyway, but it just doesn't, I don't know. I would love, to answer your question a little more directly, I would love to see something like that. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No.
Yeah.
I don't think of anything that's on the air now fits that description. I'm not holding my breath for it. But enough of my negativeness.
Well, you say that, but the thing is I agree with you for most part. I mean, my TV watching is basically this show right now, and really not anything else. So that's not saying a heck of a lot. It's kind of damning for regular TV right now. That there's nothing out there that just catches my fancy to where I gotta watch it every time it's on, or at least record it to where I can watch it later on, or do a binge watch, or that kind of thing.
Yep. Of course, we're pretty close in age too, so.
True. But I don't watch a lot of regular TV. I've talked about Rebels, but that's not on regular TV. This is going to shock some of our listeners. I don't have Netflix, so I don't watch. So obviously, I don't watch stuff there. Well, it's either that or have regular cable, and I'm starting to wonder about the logic of that.
Yeah,
but
I gave up on that about 3 years ago. So yeah.
The thing is it seems like the way things are going now, everybody's wanting to do their own streaming service. So that's not going to be good. I don't want to have Netflix, and I don't want to have and Hulu, and this and that, and 5 or 6 just to be able to be interested in seeing.
Just to be able to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch
it. Right.
Yeah. And
I'm not talking about just old shows being binge watching old shows. I'm talking about new shows.
Right.
We've talked about. I don't know if we talked about it on air. We may have, but about the new Star Trek show that's going to be on. It's going to be basically on CBS streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pick up the streaming service just to watch that show. And frankly, I'm not all that curious about the show. I've seen the trailer that just came out recently, and it looks fine. I don't have a problem with any of the casting and all that. It's just not something that has me excited, saying I want to watch this. And other than the first episode, it's all going to be available just on streaming. I don't want to fork out that kind of money for just to watch that show, plus whatever else they might have available that may be available elsewhere.
That you're already not watching.
That I'm already not watching.
Right. And that's my deal. I am curious. I don't know if I'm $10 a month curious.
Yeah.
We'll see. When the time gets closer, I'll make that decision. But yeah, I am really curious. But I'm also a bigger Star Trek fan than you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it looks good. It looks interesting. I'm not trying to downplay anything. It looks
right.
good. But I'm not excited. I'm not excited about it. But yeah. I mean, to each their own.
Right. And Star Trek is, I don't know. For me, it's. I mean, I've loved Star Trek for a long time, and
Right.
yeah, I mean, even I don't necessarily get real excited at the beginning of a new series. I remember being like when Enterprise started. I remember being kind of lukewarm on it. I liked the premise, and apparently a lot of people agreed with me because it didn't really do all that well. But
Yeah.
I mean, the later series, I was real excited for Next Gen, but shit, that had been a long time coming.
Yeah.
I'd been waiting a long time at that point. So DS9, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've probably watched less than 10 episodes of DS9 at this point. I intend to rectify that someday, but it ain't gonna be today because that shit was 7 seasons. That's not gonna happen overnight. But yeah, so my level of excitement is probably on par with the last couple of new series, but A, that's not real high, and B, I don't know, it's not, $10 a month or whatever, I don't even know what their service costs. I don't even know if their service is active yet, but I don't know. It's a lot of money for that. Speaking of in the ditch.
Well, I kind of did it again, but oh well.
That's
at least
right.
I'm consistent.
Hey, we've got a bag of sand in the trunk of the car just for these occasions.
Mm-hmm.
We are clearly terrible drivers because we end up in the ditch a lot, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We entertain, even if it's just ourselves.
There you go. Alrighty, so happy anniversary to the MASH 4077 group. Thank you for the hours of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, our weekly picks. We are back. It is time for our weekly picks, and for this week, I lead off. And my first choice is from Marvel Comics. It is Moon Knight number 14, written by Jeff Lemire and illustrated by Greg Smallwood. But if it's been anything else like the previous several issues, there may be other artists involved. Although it may be not, because this is the end of the story arc, and from all indications, this may be the end of the book, or at least for now. This has been an interesting ride over the last at least decade, maybe a decade and a half. They've really kind of explored Moon Knight's psyche, with the possibility of him having different voices talking to him, and Lemire has really taken the ball and run with it with the series. It's been a total what the frill, but it's been fun, and I hate to see it come to an end.
I'm the same way. This is a character I think should be around, although he doesn't have the superpowers and can't defeat Thanos on his own. I think that he should have his ongoing, and Lemire has done a really good job with the writing of this latest series. It'll be interesting what they do here in the future, because Marvel, they got to come back with another number 1 of Moon Knight. So let's get it started now.
Let me ask you this. As I just said, they've been kind of exploring this for several years now. with this refocus of going a little bit more old school, if he gets another series, do you think they would go back to him being more of a straight up superhero type of a book? And would that be something you'd be interested in, since you've not seen him in that way in a long time?
With all the incarnations they've had, yes,
Yeah.
I can see them shifting back to him being a crime fighter.
Yeah, more traditional.
Yes. And I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I wouldn't either.
If they would just stay with it then and don't give me Fist of Khonshu and so many other versions and make me think, hey, I need to try to keep up with this. This is one that should be done and enjoyed.
Don't overcomplicate it.
If they would just take that veil away and having a series that, okay, so he throws punches and swings from the rafters, things like that, but still more enjoyable than dissecting him every time they do a series. I think there's where I have my biggest problem.
Okay. Alrighty. Mikey's up next.
I'm up next. And my first pick is an IDW book. And it is Daveocracy, number 4. This is the end of the arc, and to the best of my knowledge, at least according to Ryan Ferrier, the writer, it is the end of the story. He is planning on this being the last Dave book for a while, at least. And if you are not, and I know both Les and I have sung the praises of this book before, of this character in this series, if you have not picked this up, if you have any interest in general craziness, hilarious robots, generic butt kicking, this is all of those things and more. So go check out. This is the third arc, or the third in the series, the third set, the third group, the third book, however you want to look at it. It has been a whole lot of fun, and I am going to miss this book, man, because it is great. It is greatness. Go pick it up.
So this is it.
This is it.
Wow.
It's one of those that I would like to grab people and say, why aren't you reading this? Because it is that much fun. And I, too, am going to miss the hilarity that they do produce.
Alrighty, Les, you're up next.
My first title is Eagle Resurgent, number 2. This is by American Mythology Productions. And this one brings back the character created by Neil Vokes. And they're doing this series that has the defender of Crystal City, Richard Eagle, roaming the streets. And he's kind of an undercover agent, but he's dealing with an ancient hate group and a supernatural cult. The cult is launching a biological terror attack and trying to do away with one of the races. So if you haven't dealt with Neil Vokes before, he's a guy that's really interesting to follow, and I recommend his work. The artwork is spectacular, and the writing by Jack Harmon is pretty on spot. It does bring back Neil Vokes' character and brings him to life pretty strong.
Cool.
Very cool.
Alrighty. I am up next, and my second choice is Red 10, number 9. This is from Comics Tribe, written by Tyler James and art by Cesar Feliciano. It's been a long time since we've had issue 8. I think I looked it up before recording, and 8 came out early 2016. So it's been a year. But this is a book I've kind of talked about on the show before. I believe I have. It is, if you're familiar with Agatha Christie's, it's under 2 names either. And Then There Was None, or 10 Little Indians, where the premise is a group of characters who don't know each other meet at, I think the original version was an island. Other versions, it's like isolated mountain, that kind of thing. And slowly but surely, each one's being killed, and you don't know who the murderer is. Now, picture that featuring the Justice League, and that is the Red 10. Basically, each member gets killed off by the end of the issue, and there is a next verse of this poem that's done just in the style of 10 Little Indians. I've thoroughly enjoyed this book, but the wait has been so long. And there's only 2. There's only this issue and one more, and then that's it. So I'm just happy to see it come back, and I'm ready for all this to be out where it can be collected, and I can go back and read all of it. But it's been an interesting book. I have a couple of theories on who's responsible for the murders, and I'm really wanting to know whether I'm right or not. More than likely I'm not, but we'll see. Mikey, you're next.
All right. I have an Image book next, and
Surprise.
Yeah, and oddly enough, this is actually another end of a story arc. Black Road number 10 comes out this week. And if you're not familiar with this book, it is written by Brian Wood and drawn by Gary Brown and Dave McCaig. And this is the story of a guy named Magnus. It is set in the Middle Ages, in like kind of sort of Scandinavia. And part of what's going on in the background is the initial spread of Christianity through that area, kind of in a historical sense. And Magnus's family was killed, and he's kind of just sort of struck off and started essentially being a mercenary. And he took a job not long ago which involved him transporting something for a local bishop, a local Catholic Church official, and the package ended up being a person, and it kind of got strange from there, and Magnus has killed a lot of people. It's actually kind of a dark story, but it's really well written, and it's really well drawn, and it's I am enjoying it immensely. And like I said, this is actually the end of the second arc, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this ends and where the story goes from here.
Cool.
Very nice.
Les, you're up again.
Well, since you guys want to end the series this time around, I'm going to start a series.
Woo.
Space Goat Publishing is bringing out Heroines number 1. This is written and drawn by Ted Nathan, and their lead for their explanation of the book is, "My name is Marcy Madison, and I'm here to save the world." This is a character, female character, that has extraordinary abilities. She is one of those that tries to make it better, make the world better, because everyone is scared every day. And that's not unlike what what the public is today. And from this, you get to know that she is going to be probably the lead of the series. Although it says heroines, and that is plural, I've got a feeling that she's going to be the one to lead the group. I'm looking forward to this because I've seen Nafa's artwork before, and it's pretty striking. He's got a flair for doing the cheesecake, yet tastefully and not so overtly like some artists do. This is no Milo Manara. This is somebody that tones it down closer to a Frank Cho or the Dotsons. So I'm really looking forward to this series, and hopefully it'll stick around.
Cool.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty. I believe all of us have honorable mentions this week. Mine is from Dark Horse, and they are collecting the classic Star Slayer Log of the Jolly Roger, which was written by a favorite of ours, Mike Rail, and he did most of the art, if not all of the art, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, this is kind of in the tradition of space pirates and all that. I've not read a lot of this series. I've got a couple issues from back in the day, so I'm glad this is actually being collected. This was actually put out originally by Windjammer at Valiant. So I'm excited to see this and check it out and add to my Mike Rail collection. I'm sure Les has read it.
Yes, I have. I thought it was First Comics that first put this out.
It could have been.
Because they had also Tim Truman's, there was a Tim Truman title in the midst of their comics. But I love Star Slayer. This was good stuff with a character that's put in a pirate spaceship, and it's just great fun to see what happens.
Alrighty. Mikey.
Alrighty. My honorable mention is a trade from Boom Studios. This is a book called The Last Contract. This is written by Ed Brisson and drawn by Lissandro Esteran, and is the story of a guy who used to be a hitman. And this was set. It's actually set in Canada, but he's a retired hitman, and somebody has gotten hold of information about him from a previous employer, and so he has to come out of retirement to kind of solve this problem. And what makes it I'll say challenging is that he's really kind of getting up there in years and is kind of starting to have some memory problems and is having just some other general the kind of difficulties that sometimes elderly folks have. And it's just a really good story, and it's actually a little hard to describe, but it's a really good story. It's like, I mean, it's a crime thriller basically, in which this central character is just kind of this really old guy who was obviously really good at his job when he was doing it, but he kind of hasn't done it in a while, and he's still actually surprisingly good at it. And so it's just a lot of fun, a lot of kind of dark noir fun.
Awesome.
Does sound like fun. I think I may have to find that myself.
Yep.
And Les.
And bringing up the last for last, I'm looking at a hardcover coming out called Lennon, The New York Years by David Fakinos. This is about John Lennon and his move to New York City back in '75 and what transpired there. This is a graphic novel version from IDW of Fakinos' story, his novel about Lennon. And I'm excited about this. It's done by the French artist Horn. And recently I just finished the graphic novel The Beatles, All Our Yesterdays. So I've got a feeling this will be a good tie-in from what I read previously.
Cool. Should be interesting.
Yep.
Definitely.
I suspect this is a part of John Lennon's life that not necessarily a lot of people are really aware of anymore.
I believe so.
So, should be interesting.
Yep. Alrighty. Any special mentions this week?
I kind of have a couple.
Okay.
And I have to admit they're kind of downers, but I think we should mention a couple of the. I think we would be remiss in not mentioning a couple of recent passings.
Yeah, I was going to say something if someone else didn't, but go ahead.
I think let's start off with Chris Cornell, who was a driving force with Soundgarden in basically the grunge era of music back in the 90s, late 80s and early 90s. Sadly, he took his own life last week at the age of 52, and he will definitely be missed. He was a very influential guy, and from all I know, the kind of guy who is really great to work with. So very sad to see that happen.
Yeah, I remember when the news came down, just seeing the response, and just not only my response, but just everybody else's reaction, just being floored, devastated by this news.
Yeah, it's like the first shock. You two layers of shock, because the first shock obviously is that he's gone, and then what seemed like really only a few hours later that it was reported as a suicide. It was like, oh
right.
Wow, jeez.
Yeah.
So it just kind of sucks,
Yep.
And the other one I was going to throw out, and this is the one I'm probably stepping on Tom's toes for. Of course, this is just a couple of days ago, as of recording. Sir Roger Moore passed away. Now, of course, he was almost 90 years old, and had apparently recently been diagnosed with cancer. But as much shit as I give some of the Bond movies he was in, and don't get me wrong, he had an illustrious career in British TV before he became James Bond. But as much shit as I give some of the movies he did, he was the Bond that I first discovered. So there's always been, and he was like the smooth, debonair, smartass Bond, and that, I mean, so I'm weird in that I intentionally do not choose a favorite Bond, but he was my first Bond for sure, so there's kind of a special place there for me. So definitely sorry to see him go.
Yeah. I was gonna mention this. I know I sent a response to writer artist Jerry Ordway on Twitter. He was talking about the writing failed him as a Bond actor in the Bond films, and my response is, well, the writing failed quite a few Bond actors, in my opinion. And I said he was not my favorite, but I enjoyed watching him. So I think that's kind of what you were saying. He's not your favorite. You don't have a favorite, and they're not high quality films, but they're somewhat enjoyable.
There were a few gems in there. There were a few that actually
Yeah.
were really good. There were some not so good ones. We even talked about this just last week.
Right.
What is, in my estimation, probably the worst Bond movie is one of his. And honestly, a couple of the best are his as well. So,
right.
I mean, he definitely did the job. He did the job well. Yet I agree with you. He didn't necessarily have all that much to work with at times. But yeah, pretty iconic, really.
Yeah, he was also my first Bond, so there's kind of a soft spot there as well. You talk about him being successful on British TV. He was successful in American TV too, with The Saint, and in I don't know how many episodes he was in Maverick, but he was there too. And he hadn't done any films in a while, but he was an ambassador for UNICEF and working hard for them. So he was still pretty active, and I'm sure y'all have seen it. If you have social media, you've probably seen it. There was a story that had been passed around since his passing, a story of a man who said, he met him when he was 7 years old, and I think he was in an airport with his grandfather, and he was trying to get an autograph. So the grandfather did it, and the grandfather didn't know who he was. So, but he got it anyway, and it brought it back to the kid, and the kid was surprised because he did autograph signing Roger Moore. So he went over there and says, "But you're James Bond." To which you saw this story, right, Mike?
Yeah.
To basically he says, "Well, I am James Bond, but I don't go around saying that because you never know. Blofeld or his associates could be anywhere." And I thought that's perfect. But the thing is this gentleman met up with Sir Roger Moore years later, when he was like 30 or so, and they were about to. Well, it was an interview or something. There was something where they had cameramen setting up cameras and all that, and the gentleman was telling Sir Roger Moore the story, to which he kind of chuckled and said that he didn't remember the story and all that. So they did all their things, and then as they were getting ready to leave, and the two were alone, Roger Moore walked up to him and says, "I do remember, but I didn't want to say anything in front of the cameraman because you don't know whether they're Blofeld's associates or not," and just kind of give him a wink. And I'm like, that is so freaking awesome. That is such an awesome story to have.
Oh man, seriously.
And that just, I laughed for a good 10 minutes after reading that. And the thing is I can believe that he did that. I totally believe he did that.
Oh yeah. That
sounds exactly like him, because he has, obviously, if you've seen the films, he has that kind of sense of humor, and he had to have it in real life as well. So, yeah, that's a sad passing. I do want to mention one more. It's been almost a week, but we lost Rich Buckler, who created Deathlock for Marvel Comics and also co-created All-Star Squadron for DC Comics. He passed away on the 19th at the age of 68 from cancer. And I distinctly remember seeing his art, especially during the 70s. He was the primary artist for Fantastic Four, with Joe Sinnott doing the inking. Some very iconic covers that you may be familiar with one off the top of my head was it was originally Treasury size, but they've reprinted it in a more reasonable size a few years ago. It was the Superman versus Shazam story. The cover is by him. So a lot of great covers, a lot of great interior work. From all accounts, he didn't understand why people would actually come up and want his autograph from some of the stories I heard. So he was very, obviously, a down-to-earth guy who just didn't understand why he was so popular. But he was a great artist, and he was involved with a lot of people's lives through comics. And yet another person that's taken from us by cancer. And he will be missed. Just like Sir Roger Moore and Chris Cornell and others. We thank them for being part of our lives, and hopefully we'll see them another day.
And whatever. To their families, of course.
Oh, definitely, of course, families and friends.
Yep.
So, any other special mentions?
That's all I got.
Okay.
Nothing here.
Okay, let's get into our shout-outs, our weekly shout-outs. Obviously, first off is Manny the Martyr, who provided our music for our podcast. We appreciate the guys for doing that. You ought to check out their page. We'll have a link in the show notes. And obviously, if you go to our podcast page on the website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, there's their logo there, and that will take you to their site as well. Thank you guys very much. We also want to shout out to Potter and Family, the podcast brethren on Twitter, who've been spreading the word of the fellowship. We appreciate it very, very much. Mikey and I have done our darnest to return that love and spread the word of their shows as well. Any kind of podcast that you can think of, any subject matter that you may be interested in, you're looking for it, go to Twitter. You don't necessarily have to have an account. Just go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Potter and Family, with one complete word, and good luck. I'm sure you'll find it. Great group of people, and once again, we thank them for their support. And last but not least, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to this podcast and previous podcasts. We hope you've listened to our other ones, or this is your first time. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you've enjoyed our show enough that you would want to go back and listen to our prior episodes. We're always open to your feedback, whether it's comments, questions, suggestions, anything. Just let us know. We're always open. The best way to get a hold of us would be to either email us, email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or just go to our website and go to the About Us page, and there's a form there that you can fill out. You can contact us through social media. We're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Obviously, we're on Twitter, @Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us on either page or both pages. And if you want to shout out to us, that would be awesome. Be great. Mikey has his own Twitter account, @MikeyGeek. And I have one as well, @TomTCGeek. Feel free to follow us, and if you're so inclined to say, hey, checked out the show, think you're great, or whatever. Or just even say hi, and we will return. We will return in kind. And wherever you download our episode, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or if you listen to us on YouTube, please take just a couple seconds and rate us. Whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, star system, whatever. It would be appreciated if you could do that. And if you have a couple extra minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Question of the week?
Let's take Les's lead and say, do you have a favorite MASH wise ass line or favorite MASH character, however you want to go with that?
Okay, there you go. I thought you were going to say something about a horrible movie, but that's good. we can stick with MASH. That'll be fine.
I think you guys gave us enough horrible movie for 1 week.
All right. Any final words before we sign off?
Just thanks, everybody.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again for listening, guys. We do appreciate the support. Love y'all very, very much. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,